Hey you! Do you want to make silly cartoons? Well, you've come to the right place. Today, I will share with you 5 great tips for drawing fun cartoon characters. Okie dokie, let's get started. Tip number 1, shapes. One huge thing to keep in mind throughout the video is to keep your characters simple. Most cartoon characters we know have very simple designs. One of the best ways to simplify a character is to view them in shape language. Shape language is a very helpful tool for both simplifying the characters and determining their personality. There's many different shapes out there, but for cartoons, we luckily only need to know 3. These 3 are circles, squares, and triangles. So usually, circles show that a character is friendly, welcoming, or empathetic. Squares tend to show strength, reliability, and confidence. And triangles usually show that a character is dangerous, spontaneous, or energetic. One thing I like to do for shape language is to study different cartoon characters and break them down into very simple shapes. Notice how with each character I break down, they all have a primary shape, and it's very simple to deconstruct. Keep in mind that there are exceptions to this rule. SpongeBob, for example, is in the shape of a square, yet he's very energetic and friendly. So now that I've shown you guys shape language theory, I'm going to show you how I apply shape language to my own characters. So when I have a character in mind, I often start with very loose drawings that are very quick. This process is very important because your first design for a character will never be the perfect one. Always do multiple iterations so you can figure out which one works the best. So this was my final design. As you can see, it's very simple. I mostly use triangular shapes and have a big focus on his eyes, which contrast everything else, both with shape and with tone. Alright, so that covers the basics of shapes. Remember to be simple and think about the character's personality when designing the shape. Next, let's move on to tip number 2, silhouettes. Psst, hey guys, guess who this is? It's me! That's my silhouette! Anyway, any great character design will have a very recognizable silhouette. Take a look at the silhouettes from some of the most popular cartoon characters like Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, Squidward. All of them have extremely recognizable silhouettes. If you're able to recognize it in less than a second, then that's a strong design. I'll show you guys my thought process for creating silhouettes with this gnome character I just made. So I started out by doing multiple drawings of the gnome silhouette in different poses. One of the big things with silhouettes is clarity. You need to make sure you can still tell who your character is from the silhouette alone. If you're able to tell who the character is just by their silhouette, then you've got a really strong character design. So this ended up being my final design for the silhouette. As you can see, I changed a couple of things up from the silhouette compared to before. So the first change I did was that I lowered down the arms. I made it so that it's more so at the torso rather than the mustache. I just find that this is a clearer reading both for the arms and the mustache since, arms don't grow out of mustaches or anything. And then the second big change I did were the eyebrows. I made them a lot thicker and also larger. I wanted to emphasize the angry gnome by making his eyebrows bigger. Plus, I think this looks funnier. Speaking of angry eyebrows, tip number 3, emotion. The easiest way for your audience to understand your characters is to make sure they have a clear emotion. A perfect example of cartoon characters having very clear emotions is Inside Out. In Inside Out, the characters' names are literally their emotions. Sadness, fear, joy, you understand the characters immediately just by their names. You can also see that they have very strong shape language and recognizable silhouettes too, which emphasizes their emotion. One big tip I have is to practice drawing different facial expressions to explore a range of emotions you can show for a character. When you make a character happy, don't just give them a smile. Make their eyes go up in excitement, raise their eyebrows, loosen their face, change everything. Make the face jump for joy. That way, when you start drawing anger, there would be a stronger contrast between the emotions. Not only would there be angry eyebrows, but we would also have a scrunched up nose, tense teeth, and squinted eyes all towards the center of the face. Similar things can be said for all the other emotions, but to summarize, it is generally a good idea to push your emotions by exaggerating all of their facial features. Another big tip for emotion is to show it through the character's pose. If a character is angry, show it in the pose. Let's take a look at the angry gnome. He's got some clenched fists, bent arms and legs, a hunched back. This really shows he's angry. But what if he's happy? The gnome will be jumping for joy by throwing a shovel into the air, very loose arms and legs, and an excited expression. As you can see, emotion is super important for characters. It's a great way for your audience to understand who they are and how they act. Anyway, let's move on to tip number 4, line of action. So, what is line of action? The line of action is the first line you draw for guiding the pose of a cartoon character. This line does not show up in the final pose, but it is super important for helping your cartoon characters feel alive. Make sure you always use line of action, not just for dynamic poses, but for standing poses too. Line of action can further improve the emotion of a character too, since they're putting their whole pose into it. My biggest tip for line of action is to never, ever draw a perfectly straight line. Straight lines are boring and lack personality. Always use curved lines, never straight lines. I'll show you guys how I use line of action with this gnome character. So here I have a gnome to show the 3 different types of curves for line of action. These include the concave curve, the convex curve, and the S-curve. They're all very important to use for different poses. Well, let's move on to the final tip. Tip number 5, exaggeration. So, for exaggeration, you basically take the line of action from the previous stage and exaggerate it like crazy until you break the character. When you exaggerate, really think about how the character's feeling. If the character is laughing, really make their mouth go wide open and make them laugh like crazy. If a character's feeling angry, really scrunch up their face and really show that anger in their teeth, their eyebrows. If a character's surprised, make their eyes huge, make their jaw hit the floor, make their arms go crazy, exaggerate, push it, have fun. It's so fun to exaggerate. Well, that's all I got today. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I inspired you all to draw cartoons. I hope you all have a great day and see you in the next video.